Hello, everybody. This is Steve coming to you live from Calgary in the free and independent Republic of Alberta. Well, not really. Calgary, Alberta, Canada, but pretty close anyway. I'm here. I'm live on the YouTube. And I'm also here and live on Facebook for anyone who's tuning in that way on my brand new, fresh public figure Facebook page. Aren't I clever? Anyways, so what I wanted to do is I wanted to get started and start building a audio library podcast in addition to the videos I've been doing. So I thought I'd start with this one. And, well, we're going to be talking a lot about the old free speech thing. We're going to be talking about politics in general, because that's what I am, the old political commentator kind of guy. Oh, just so you know, we've also got the live chat active and on the go here. You can catch me up on YouTube. And you can also catch me up on Facebook, of course. And if you wanted to make a comment, there's comments there and all kinds of options available to you. So this is an audio-only stream, so you won't be seeing any pictures of my perfect face for radio, as I sometimes call it. It's just there and out there. So, what's been going on over the weekend? Well, last Friday, last Thursday, whatever it was, Ben Shapiro, of all people, was at UC Berkeley. And it was a rather interesting evening. The police had cordoned off an entire section of campus. Buildings had been closed. And you needed to show photo ID just to get in through the door. And as well, once you were in, you had to go through metal detectors. You had to you had to show that you had a ticket to the event. You had to show all kinds of things. So it was an interesting evening, nonetheless. There were a few people who weren't very thrilled with the very fact that Ben was even there. They didn't like what he was saying, I guess. It was more of a case of, I think, most of these people didn't even know who Ben Shapiro was. All they know is that here's this guy who my cousin's uncle's friends, sister's niece's former roommate named Bob told me that Ben Shapiro is an alt-right neo-Nazi white supremacist and was going to be spewing these hateful views and opinions in front of a live audience at UC Berkeley. Most of these people didn't know that Ben Shapiro is actually a conservative Jewish lawyer who has his own show called The Daily Wire. And you can catch that show for free for the first 20 minutes or so of it on YouTube, and then you'd have to go and pay for his for a annual subscription if you wanted to catch the rest of the show live. But that's Ben Shapiro. So he was invited to speak by the UC Berkeley College Republicans. So he went and he spoke. And all hell broke loose, to put it bluntly. The university had to spend $60,000 to bring in the riot police to keep the peace. A bunch of students staged a sit-in inside a building with a sign on the window that said, "We don't want Ben Shapiro's bullshit," and they flatly refused to move. Oh, by the way, I should warn you that this is not a censored show. I'm going to say whatever it is I want to say because I'm not going to be regulated by the CRTC or the FCC or whatever. And if YouTube wants to demonetize me, so be it. Since I don't plan on monetizing via YouTube, you can catch me up on Patreon if you want, or over on Minds.com. Over on Minds, MINDS.com, you can also get a subscription, which I need to get set up still. But anyway, back to Ben Shapiro. So what did Ben Shapiro go in, and what was these horrendous ideas that he spoke about? He talked about the fact that he's pro-life. Oh, the horror. He talked about the fact that he basically presented mainstream conservative views. He didn't say anything that was horrendously evil or horrible. All he said was, this is my opinion. This is why I believe this. And if you don't agree with me, that's up to you. And then he did a Q&A. So he spoke for about 40 minutes and then had a bunch of people come and ask him questions. And Ben has an interesting rule where if you disagree with Ben, let the ushers or the people in charge know, and you get to go to the front of the line. Makes it more fun, because then Ben will debate with you. So this happened. And of course, the funny thing is, nobody who was there actually disagreed with Ben very much. I think they were all out waving signs and screaming and yelling outside. But so Ben did his talk, and Ben went his merry way. And what happened later? Well, the protests kept going. There was no major violence. About 9 to 11 people were arrested for carrying weapons inside the exclusion zone, which is what it is. And there was one lady, she was knocked off a post or something for holding a sign which said something about free speech. And, well, interesting, another webcaster named Tim Pool. He's a journalist, and he's very good. I really liked him because he's very objective with his viewpoint. He doesn't he doesn't stop anybody from speaking their mind. He doesn't attack anybody for voicing an opinion he disagrees with. He's a good guy. I liked him. And so he was out there with a video camera, and he was documenting the event. Lauren Southern was out there too. She and Ben crossed paths at least once during the documentary that I saw. And you can find that documentary on YouTube as well. And he interviewed a couple of people, and this is where I really want to get to the content of what I'm going to talk about. There's 2 interviews on his little documentary there. And I don't have permission from him to actually use the actual audio clips. So I'm going to work from memory. And if I had permission, I'd actually play them and put my comments in. But out of respect for Tim and out of respect for his work, I'll let you find his stuff. When this recording goes up, I'll even put the links to I'll put the links to Ben's speech, and I'll put the link to Tim Pool's documentary in the description to the video. So that'll go up after the fact. But one of the interviews that there was this guy talking, and he was with the group Refuse Fascism. Now, I don't understand why these groups, Antifa, Refuse Fascism, are even named this. Because these events are not being put on by anything closely resembling the left-wing ultra-socialist ideology known as fascism. And why do I say it's socialist? Because it is. It's collectivism, and collectivism is the root of socialism. We don't act as an individual, we act as a group. Together we are strong, as individuals we are weak. That's the basic philosophy. That's why socialism is all around public ownership of corporations, anti-free enterprise, anti-individualism. And so Antifa and Refuse Fascism claim to stand against this, where in actual fact they're all run by socialists who actually support this kind of thing. These guys are just as fascist as the fascists they oppose. Oh, they oppose racism and bigotry. Well, on that respect, they're right. But racist groups and bigotry groups, bigoted groups such as the so-called alt-right, which is nothing close to right-wing, because they're an identitarian movement as well. They're just surrounding their whole thing with their whole thing is about collectivism based on race. and based on color. You can have collectivism based on anything. You think Black Lives Matter isn't a collectivist group? So, in any case, he's out there and he's talking about this whole thing. And he says at one point, well, look, the so-called right-wing movement, this is the guy that Tim's interviewing, the so-called right-wing has their guys everywhere. They've got control of the media, which they don't. They've got their YouTube channels. They've got the most powerful office in the nation, the Oval Office. And yeah, Donald Trump is oh so right wing. Donald Trump is Donald Trump. Donald Trump will say whatever it is Donald Trump thinks will advance Donald Trump's own personal agenda and net worth. But this guy's saying this, so he says, you know, we deserve to have a platform to speak as well. And free speech isn't free. I can't come into your living room and insist that you will sit down and listen to me and say you're going to let me speak in your living room from 9 to 10 p.m. on Friday and voice my opinions, because you can't just barge into somebody's house and say this. First of all, you dumb moron. Excuse me. First of all, Ben was invited to speak at Berkeley. The college Republicans invited him to come in and speak. So he didn't just barge in and demand a platform to speak. And second of all, Berkeley is a publicly funded institution. It is a university. It is there to confront and debate and discuss and approach different ideas and thoughts and opinions. And if you don't like what Ben Shapiro has to say, you have every right to not be there. You have every right to voice a different opinion. You have every right to stand outside and put a pot on your head and bash it with a wooden spoon if you want. No one's going to stop you. You might look like an idiot and give yourself a headache. But that is your right. So, and what was telling about this guy as well is when he was asked if he condemned Antifa violently attacking those who have different opinions. And Antifa has actually done this. Antifa is responsible for burning down the University of Berkeley, the University of California, Berkeley campus's facilities last February when Milo Yiannopoulos went to try to give a speech. Unfortunately, they managed to shut Milo down. They're not going to stop him again. So who's really... And this guy refused to condemn them for these acts. Quite frankly, I think the failure is in the police. Because the police are there to A, keep the peace, B, keep people safe, and C, uphold the law. And the law in the United States is you have free speech. And if you are prevented from exercising your right to free speech, then it is incumbent upon the police and the various law enforcement agencies to stop the person preventing you from preventing you. In other words, quite frankly, Antifa and those attempting to violently stop right-wing speakers from speaking should be rounded up, arrested, and thrown in jail for their crime, because in the States it is a crime to prevent somebody else from speaking freely. Now, the second interview, and I'm going to be wrapping up pretty soon here because I'm running out of things to talk about. And the second interview that Tim had was with a woman, and her face was blurred out. This was after the lady had been knocked over and sent to hospital for holding up that sign. And her response was, well, what do you expect? It's pretty stupid to show up here with a sign. No. Once again, this is a case of exercising the right to express your opinion. That's called victim blaming. And Tim asked her the question, and I agree wholeheartedly. Is it the victim's fault if they're sexually assaulted in any situation? Not like, if I'm not talking about the specific one, but in general terms, if somebody is sexually assaulted, it is not the victim's fault, ever. They didn't ask to be sexually assaulted. They didn't go out looking to be sexually assaulted. They didn't give consent to sexual assault. It doesn't matter what they were wearing. It doesn't matter where they were. You don't go out planning to be a victim. That's the very definition of the word victim. So this lady is victim blaming. And she got caught in a logical a trap there. And kudos to Tim for hitting her with it. The victim is never at fault. And this reminds me of a situation a few years ago at a pride rally where this guy showed up and held up a sign that said, "There is no pride in sodomy." Now, I don't agree with the sign. I disagree with this guy on that position. I'm no friend of his. But I do support his right to hold that sign up. Now, he got beaten up for it. He got beaten up and assaulted and bruised and kicked, and his sign was destroyed. And I remember on Facebook a bunch of people were laughing and making jokes about this fact. And I stepped in and I said, "Hey, hang on a second, guys. This is wrong, too. You don't assault someone for expressing a different opinion. You leave them alone. You look at them, you laugh, you move on." And I, of course, got crucified by these guys, people saying, "Well, what do you expect? You show up there and all the same thing." And I said, "Hey, well, this is victim blaming now." They didn't like that very much. This lady at this event in Berkeley didn't like things very much either. So it just shows you, my friends, the mentality of people, that free speech can only exist if you agree with me. That's pretty sad. And rounding up here, this is going to be really interesting next week when Steve Bannon, Pamela Geller, Milo Yiannopoulos, and others show up at Berkeley to speak during this wonderful upcoming event, which I'll be talking about, I'm sure, called Free Speech Week. This is in direct response to Milo's being shut down last February. Antifa really is their own worst enemy. And now they're going to bring in the big guns. And of course, what's the UC Berkeley doing? They are stonewalling. They are doing whatever they can to make life as difficult as they possibly can for the organizers of this event. And Milo's put up, and I'll put a link to this in the description as well. Milo's put up a video talking about the red tape and hoops that they're being forced to jump through. And all this other crap that's going on. $60,000 deposits and police and insurance and all kinds of warnings and threats and all this stuff just so a guy can come into a room, spend an hour with a bunch of people who want to be there, and say his piece. And whether you agree or disagree with him, does it matter? And that's really what this is all about. And that's really the whole thrust of my show. That's why my Facebook page is @SteveSpeaksFreely. And of course, you can find me on Twitter, and I'm also over on gab.ai. SC Britain. You can find me on Minds, MINDS.com. And I've also got an account on Patreon, and I haven't got any of that set up yet. That's going to be coming up in the next few days, I think. But I wanted to get out there, get a daily audio commentary, daily audio podcast up and on the go. So here it is. That's me. That's it for today. Comments are always welcome. Send me some tweets. Tell me what you think. If you disagree with me, that's great. If you agree with me, that's even better. Because I'm always right in my own mind. So this is Steve Britton signing off for Monday, September the 18th, 2017. I will be back again, same time, 10 a.m. tomorrow, Tuesday, September the 19th, where I'm going to be talking about something completely different, I expect. And if I had been prepared and if I had had my notes handy, I'd be able to tell you what it is. But I got no idea right now. Either way, hopefully, I'll talk to you tomorrow.